coming. My name is Kathy Dunn, and I'm the president of the Ontario Association for Family Mediation. This afternoon, we're hoping to provide you with solutions to a problem that is looming and will explode once the courts reopen. COVID-19 has forced many separating couples to self-isolate together. With courts offering restricted services, these couples are left with limited options to resolve their family law issues. Tensions are also rising in these households, and sadly, we have seen some of the effects in higher incidents of domestic violence and child abuse. You may have heard that mediation is an alternative dispute resolution method, but it has been shown time and again that mediation is in fact the preferred dispute resolution method. Accredited family mediators are available right now across the province of Ontario to offer immediate, affordable services, either online or safely in person, to help families resolve such issues as custody, access, child support, spousal support, FRO arrears, property division, Children's Aid Society matters, and elder mediation. Mediators can help separating couples create agreements that can be turned into court orders if they choose to do so. The courts are slowly reopening, and experts predict a deluge of new family cases that will likely add to an already significant backlog. Family and child protection mediation offers a way for families to avoid backlog and further delay and get help for their family law issues right away. You will hear today from various governmental departments who already provide funding for mediation to help families avoid costly, lengthy, and confusing court processes. You will also have an opportunity to ask questions about family mediation and dialogue with constituents who work in the field of family, elder, and child protection mediation across the province. We would like to raise the public's awareness of these services. We hope that information we provide today will give you a valuable resource to take back to your communities. I'd like to thank the chair of our advocacy committee and OAFM board member, Nicole Stewart-Kamanga, as well as the entire committee, including Janet Whitehead and Nigel McLeod, for organizing this information event. I'll now turn you over to the Executive Director of the Ontario Association for Family Mediation, Marianne Popescu.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I'm honored that you're all here. Thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with us. I think if we were in person, we had a lovely meal planned for you, but unfortunately the snacks are BYO. And so welcome to all. As Kathy said, we're here to promote awareness and really solve a problem for you in your constituency offices in terms of providing services during COVID-19 to the community. So I just wanted to give a super fast overview, leaving as much time for questions and answers at the end. And so this is really just, I'm throwing a little stone in the water for all of these types of mediation. So at OAFM, we do sort of cradle to grave mediation. The first and most common being family mediation, where our mediators, there's over 450 accredited family mediators in the province of Ontario, who are all able to either work independently, comprehensively, or in teams to assist families through all sorts of issues related to separation. So parenting plans, financial issues, work issues connected to parenting and that sort of thing. So really a really comprehensive look at, all of the issues your constituents could come into your office with, support, those sorts of things that our mediators are able to help you and help you online. So I think I'll just go back here to the Adapt and Serve. This is our logo for what we did right away. So I want to tell you very quickly that as of the end of March, over 200 of our members had been participated in an online free training that we did straight away to help people move from the in-person experience to the online experience. And recently, last weekend, we did a course, a more in-depth course, and now over about 30 people have taken that course. We expect another about 30 next at the end of this July. And people are really, the mediators are really searching for the skill and adapting and serving the public from their homes through platforms like Zoom. And it's going really, really well. We've had excellent feedback. So the second type of mediation that we do is at the end of life or later life stages. And it's elder mediation is also called multi-party intergenerational dispute resolution, or it can be defined that way. So we look at strengthening the family across generations to resolve disputes that may come into your office around sibling dynamics, parents, long-term care, moving, selling homes, and we have over 41 accredited elder mediators who hold an additional specialist designation in elder mediation and have taken a long course, 120 hours, and are very, very skilled to meet with the issues of intergenerational family disputes. And then child protection mediation, we're going to hear a little bit from Lori Bennett, who oversees this program, and we run the child protection mediation roster system. So we hold a roster of over 120 accredited child protection mediators, and these mediators take, again, a very rigorous training and pass an exam in order to provide services to the community to really strengthen the family around the child to improve the lives of children. And really, that's just a very brief overview. So I'm going to turn it over to Nicole now, and also open for any questions. And we're really looking forward to this hour. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Marianne. I will be introducing Mitzi Hunter. And it is my pleasure to introduce MPP Mitzi Hunter. And it's also been my pleasure to have known Mitzi for many, many years. Mitzi is the MPP for Scarborough-Guildwood. She was first elected in 2013. Mitzi is a member of the Standing Committee on Finance and Economic Affairs. And she has also served Ontario by holding a number of cabinet positions. Most recently, she served as the Minister of Advanced Education and Skills Development. She's also served as the Minister of Education and the Associate Minister of Finance, responsible for pension reform. Mitzi was the former CEO of the Greater Toronto Civic Action Alliance. She was also the Chief Administrative Officer of the Toronto Community Housing Corporation and Vice President with Goodwill Industries. Mitzi grew up in Scarborough. She graduated from the University of Toronto Scarborough campus, and she earned her MBA from the Rotman School of Management. And again, we're so pleased that Mitzi can join us here today to share a few words about family mediation. And Mitzi, I will turn it over to you now.
Mitzi, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I said all good things about everybody. So hello, everyone. It's really wonderful for me to be here today. And I want to say a huge thank you to the OAFM and its organizing committee, and more specifically for your intuitiveness, understanding that we are in the midst of a pandemic that has really required everyone to stay at home, to socially distance, and to do things that are not normal and natural. And that causes tensions. It causes tensions in the best of times. So I just want to say that your efforts of making information available to MPPs and our staff is really admirable. And I want to say thank you for doing so. We know that the COVID-19 pandemic has taken a toll here in Canada, in Ontario, and around the world. So this is impacting people's health, it's impacting their finances, it's impacting their economic resources, and maybe even just how they feel about themselves and their future prospects. So our way of life has radically shifted in a way that we would never have imagined or predicted, even just a few short months ago. So as a society and really as a community, we've had to take these drastic measures to control the virus And, my role in terms of in the legislature is as the finance critic for the Ontario Liberal Party. And so I look at the economic impact and the fact that 2.2 million Ontarians are either out of work or their hours have drastically reduced. And this is creating a lot of pressure in our society and in our communities. Because of the virus and the health impacts, people have been asked to socially distance, to stay at home. And there are disturbing statistics that are emerging as a result of this pandemic. And I just want to say to the OAFM, you've been listening and we appreciate that. We want to say thank you for the work that you are doing. But here are some of the hidden impacts that families are suffering from at home. The Assault Women's Helpline reports that shelter requests from women have increased by 400%. 400%. The Toronto Star recently reported on Kids Help Phone and that their calls have doubled since the pandemic. I do want to say that Kids Help Phone put out a call for volunteers, and they received thousands of requests for people to volunteer for their helpline. And as a result, they were able to expand their services to include help calls for individuals other than for kids and for youth. So, it just shows you the demand and the pressure that people are feeling. Just last week, I read that CTV's news indicated that family lawyers and the courts are bracing for a surge in divorce proceedings once COVID-19 restrictions are lifted and the courts reopen. This is a sad reality, and one in which I know you and your members understand too well. So like many public spaces during the pandemic, family courts restricted their operations to only the most urgent cases. And this meant that many separating couples have been unable to obtain court assistance to resolve their family issues, and they've been living in limbo over the last few months. I'm familiar with the situation in terms of the pressures that families are experiencing. One of the things as an MPP office, I was actually just speaking with my case manager yesterday about some of the calls that are coming in. And we had a student, a social work student actually, from one of our colleges. And when she started working on our cases, she was very surprised about the level of response that as MPPs, we are asked to intervene, and she actually said this, you guys are like social workers in terms of solving issues and providing information and support for families and for individuals in our communities. So, any resource that you are able to provide is helpful to us. It allows us to do our jobs as MPPs and to provide the support for families where they need it the most. And so I'm sure that many of my colleagues are grateful. They are looking for answers, and I'm happy that they're either here on the call or they'll watch the call following if you post this recording and send out the resources that you are intending to our offices. So changing support has been challenging for our constituents because not only is court services restricted, but so is the service at the Family Responsibility Office, so the FRO office. And we get, lots of calls for support and from FRO. It's something that is actually one of our top 5 or 10 issues that comes through our offices. So with limited opportunities to resolve family law issues, this has created more strain for Ontario families. So I'm pleased that today we will hear that, the changing child support or spousal support is one of the reasons where the family mediators can help. You can help. And as Marianne, in just framing this conversation today mentioned, family mediators address issues such as divorce, parenting, support for property division. They also help families involved with CAS and elder disputes. It is helpful to know that if couples come to an agreement, that they can turn that agreement into a court order or have a lawyer draft a separation agreement for them. And it's also important for the public to know that family mediation is much faster. It is much less expensive than going to the courts. And I would say coming out of post-COVID, you know, the courts are going to be bogged down on a myriad of issues. And so family mediation is an alternative option that that is really important. So it's also less acrimonious, I would say, than the court process, and maybe even less intimidating for certain individuals. And therefore, there's an overall benefit because it helps families to resolve their issues in terms of, you know, whatever it is that they're dealing with as a couple or as parents. So as family courts start preparing to slowly reopen, there will be a wave of new cases. They will be added to the list of older cases, which we already know that there is a list, and that those were put on hold because of the pandemic. So these are real concerns in terms of the backlog. So now more than ever, it's crucial for Ontarians to know that family mediators can help and that family mediation is available online, which is extraordinary. So I just want to thank Nicole once again for inviting me to address you today, and to the Association of Family Mediators for the work that you do on behalf of families in Ontario. I thank you for that work and the efforts that you bring to resolve disputes and to resolve issues, and to you know, to allow families to find solutions and to find resolutions. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the Lunch and Learn today, and I want to say thank you for this forum and for the resources that you have supplied to us as MPPs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mitzi. We really appreciate you being here. It really is our goal to raise public awareness of what's available out there to assist people who are trying to resolve their family law issues. And thank you so much for getting that message out. We appreciate it. We also have with us MPP Natalia Kusendova, who joined us, who will also share some of her insights as being an MPP and some of the family issues that she might see coming into her office. MPP Kusendova is the MPP for Mississauga Centre. And in addition to that, she is a registered nurse, and she's returned to the front lines during the COVID-19 pandemic to assist. So admirable. As a nurse, she's worked in diverse settings and with diverse groups of people, such as in emergency departments at hospitals, correctional facilities, mental health organizations, and senior residences. She really has a good feel for what's happening on the ground in the community. MPP Kusendova is a member of the Standing Committee on Justice Policy, and she's the chair of the Standing Committee on Social Policy. MPP Kusendova, we really appreciate you being with us today. So I turn it over to you now.
Well, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. When you read it that way, it actually sounds overwhelming, my own bio, but thank you. You know, I'm always happy to serve in both of my roles as an MPP and as a registered nurse. It's all about helping people and serving people. And as my colleague, MPP Hunter, has mentioned, you know, people come to us with different kinds of issues. And, you know, sometimes I feel like a social worker, but sometimes I feel like a psychologist or a mental health worker. And sometimes people come even from medical advice. So really, as MPPs, we really are in the front lines of helping people access services that are available through our government, also through other levels of government as well. And so the work that your organization does is very important in our community. But also for myself as an MPP, you know, nobody is born an MPP, so it's always a learning process. And so Lunch and Learns such as this ones are always a great opportunity for us to know what is available in our community and how we can assist our constituents better. And so I always encourage my staff and my colleagues as well to participate, just so we know what else is out there in terms of resources. And as MPP Hunter has mentioned, you know, COVID-19, the pandemic has been difficult on our communities, and we feel it in Mississauga, in the region of Peel. And as we are starting to have, you know, people come back to our constituencies and for appointments, definitely family law is one of the top issues that are being accessed or talked about right now. You know, the pandemic has exposed some vulnerabilities in certain families, and certain families now want to move forward in terms of divorce or custody, etc. And for myself, you know, I've been through this process myself with my parents separating and divorcing, etc. And it is not an easy process for anybody involved. And so having additional resources, such as the ones that you provide, I think will be key in helping our constituents across Ontario. But as MPP Hunter has also mentioned, you know, custody is one of the issues that are being accessed the most right now, and family law, etc. So I'm really here just to listen and to learn, so that and my staff are on this call as well, so that they can, you know, provide better services to my constituents going forward. And, you know, I'm more of a health expert. So for me, anything to do with justice, as a member in the Justice Committee, I'm always learning and listening. And it's very interesting because when I'm on the Social Policy Committee and there are more of health issues, I have more of more expertise and better lens. So, but for me, justice is so fascinating, and any opportunity to learn, I always welcome it. So thank you so much for including me today.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. My pleasure.
So next we have Jamie Lee. I believe Jamie is the acting director of the Program Management Branch, Court Services Division, and the Ministry of the Attorney General. And Jamie is going to provide us with a great overview around what the court-connected services for family mediation are. And I believe that she's going to be sharing some slides with us today as well.
Thanks, Nicole. Sorry, thanks, Nicole. I'm just trying to find my slide. Can everybody see the slides?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I had too many windows open today. Hello, everyone. Thank you for asking me to attend this session. As Nicole mentioned, my name is Jamie Lee, and I'm the director responsible for the court-connected family mediation services with the Ministry of the Attorney General. So first off, I really wanted to thank the Ontario Association for Family Mediation for inviting me to speak about these court-connected family mediation services. And I wanted to recognize all the family mediation and information service providers. They provide a very important service to families, as both MPPs noted, and they really have quickly adapted to our circumstances and are promoting their services and offering them virtually to the public during the pandemic. So today's webinar is really important because we can provide you with an opportunity to learn more about court-connected family mediation and information services, as well as provide an update on the availability of these services during the pandemic. So family mediation and information services are available to all courts in Ontario that hear family law matters. These services were expanded province-wide in 2011 to reflect the ministry's commitment to improve access to family justice. So there's actually a suite of services that are available, and I'll just give you a quick overview of what each one is. So the first one is the voluntary on-site and off-site mediation services. These services help family resolve conflict outside of court and reach agreements on other related issues. So the on-site mediation is offered without charge to clients, usually on the date of their court appearance. The off-site mediation is provided for clients with more complex matters. There is a user fee for off-site mediation, but it's based on income and the number of dependents. So these on-site and off-site mediation services, they're really successful. They, approximately 80% of mediation files are settled, full, or partially. The second piece, or the second service, is information and referral coordinators. They provide information to clients about support services that are available in the community and identify urgent cases which require immediate referral to either a lawyer or for judicial intervention. The third service is the Mandatory Information Program. The Mandatory Information Program provides an overview of the family court process, options for resolving disputes, and the effects of separation and divorce on children. The Mandatory Information Program, or sometimes we call it the MIP, is a required step for most family court cases and is also available to any Ontarian, regardless of whether they have started a matter in court. So the the Mandatory Information Program, it can be accessed in person, but it can also be accessed through a seminar or an online module. In 2019, approximately 19,000 people completed the Mandatory Information Program, and over 80% of clients were satisfied with the program and the service that they received. To help contain the spread of COVID-19, both the Superior Court of Justice and the Ontario Court of Justice announced reduced sittings effective March 16th and 17th, 2020. So what that meant was that in-court appearances were reduced to only urgent proceedings, and court counter hours were reduced to limit the foot traffic inside of the courthouse. On March 16th, 2020, family mediation and information service providers were directed to suspend in-person services. Service providers adapted quickly to deliver family mediation and information services virtually, including reaching out to government and community organizations. The ministry continues to provide service providers during the pandemic. The ministry continues to support service providers during the pandemic as they reach out to family justice stakeholders and promote the availability of their services. So today I brought with me Sandra Ferreira. Sandra Ferreira is the coordinator of family mediation and family law information centers, and she continues to provide support to service providers and promote the use and availability of their services during the pandemic. The ministry has also been engaging with the judiciary to leverage their support to refer more cases to mediation where appropriate. The ministry also promotes the availability of support services online, including the ministry's website and the Steps to Justice website. So to reduce, since the reduction of in-person services in the courthouse, services are currently being delivered in different ways. So on-site mediation services are available remotely for each location. Service providers have developed a schedule for their on-site mediators to be available. For off-site mediation services, they're currently open business as usual. Off-site mediation continues through remote technology. For information and referral coordinator services, they are available remotely for each court location to take calls with any client experiencing family breakdown or in need of services or information, or if they need to reschedule a MIP. These services are also available beyond the reduced counter hours at the courthouse. As for the Mandatory Information Program, that service providers are providing virtually using technology such as Zoom, where we're using right now. The court-connected family mediation services are a valuable resource for constituents experiencing a family breakdown. If someone is interested in court-connected family mediation and information services, they can continue to contact their local service provider. And all of the service provider information is also available on the ministry's website if they need to find out who the service provider is in their area. The ministry remains committed to the health and safety of staff and of family mediation and information service providers and members of the public who access the courts. So as the COVID response and recovery evolves, the availability of these services will be adjusted in order to meet the needs of the court and users. So before I finish up my quick overview, I did want to thank the Ontario Association for Family Mediation again for inviting me to speak about these services, and to thank service providers for their continued support and delivery of these important services to the public and for families.
You're muted, Nicole.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Jamie. That's great. That's a great overview, letting folks know that mediation is available, although the courts are closed. If the public just contacts their local service provider, they will be able then to access mediation online. So we're going to be providing those resources at the end of today's forum. We'd like to go next to Laurie Bennett. Laurie Bennett's going to be describing and explaining for us the Child Protection Mediation Services. Laurie is the manager of the Child Welfare Secretariat at the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services. So I'll pass it over to you, Laurie. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here to speak to this specific program. So as was said, I work at the Child Welfare Secretariat, which is essentially the policy development and program design branch of the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services for children's aid societies. So we develop policy for societies and design programs for children, youth, and families that come in contact with children's aid societies. And alternative dispute resolution was introduced to the child welfare, formally introduced to the child welfare sphere in Ontario in 2006 as part of a series of reforms that were intended to make some adjustments in child welfare. And ADR was specifically introduced with a view to streamlining some court processes and also to encourage alternatives to court where situations could be resolved without court intervention. And so those changes were introduced to the system by way of amendments to the child welfare legislation at that time, the Child and Family Services Act. And the legislative provisions at that time required that children's aid societies, in the course of their service provision, were required to consider ADR as part of if there were any issue where ADR could contribute to resolution with respect to a decision about a child or a plan for the child's care, societies were required to consider ADR. And those provisions were carried over to the Child, Youth and Family Services Act, which came into effective force in 2018. Child welfare, family mediation is is one of the approved methods of ADR that are part of the legislation. And so since its introduction, the ministry has maintained a relationship with the Ontario Association for Family Mediation to maintain a roster of mediators from which children's aid societies can select appropriate mediators who have been screened by the association and trained and so on to deliver child protection mediation. And so societies are required to use mediators that are on that roster. And we've heard of many types of occasions where mediation would be effective. In terms of planning for a child, specifically in terms of decisions about a caregiving arrangement. If a child is not able to live at home, there's a concern that makes it not safe for the child to be at home, that mediation can be an effective tool to helping the family and a society arrive at an appropriate plan for that child. Determining access is another area. And one area that we've seen some growth in was in 2018, the province raised the age of protection in Ontario. It's what we call raising the age of protection in Ontario, or in other words, it increased the age range in which a children's aid society could become involved with a child at risk. And it was previously 16 and it was raised to 18. And so, as you might imagine, for a 16 or 17-year-old, sometimes their involvement in a situation might be a little different than decisions with younger children. And so we've seen some growth in mediation where the youth is involved and is engaged to help mediate situations with parents and with societies to help arrive at a good plan for that young person's living arrangement, plan for their care, and so on. I think it'd be a good idea to speak to the issue of COVID-19 and how it's impacted mediation. And as has been mentioned, with courts shutting down and so on, it's been an opportunity for people to consider, without a legislative avenue, might we be able to address some of these issues through mediation. And you've probably heard in the media some concerns raised around access, parent-child access during COVID, and concerns about the rights of children to see their parents and for parents to see their children, and also concerns around safety, and particularly if children are living in a home where there's vulnerabilities and where there are many families connected to that home, concerns around spread. And so, there's where it's been difficult to negotiate an agreement. We've heard that mediation has been used in these scenarios to help come to an agreement that everyone can be okay with, that's safe for the child and safe for everyone's health, but also meets the needs of that child's rights, and also the clinical needs of a child in terms of having a relationship with their family. So, while we've heard there's been some decrease during COVID, we've also heard that it's opened up another avenue. And one of our experiences, I think, in the child welfare sector is that this sort of experience travels, and where there's been success in particular types of situations, then staff tend to go back to that well and tend to look. If they've seen success in through use of mediation, well, they'll go back to that. And we're hoping, as we travel, through this period with COVID and move back to more of a back to normal or to a new normal, that some of the lessons learned during this time will influence how we continue to work in child welfare and how we use mediation going forward. So those are some thoughts about where we see mediation as an effective tool in child welfare practice today.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lori. I think it's really important for people to be aware, if they are involved in a CAS matter, that obviously court is one route, but there are child protection mediators that can help to facilitate a resolution without necessarily having to go through the stress of court. So thank you for that overview.
Thank you.
Just wanted to let folks know that if you have a question, any of the MPPs or anyone on the Zoom call today, if you've got a question about family mediation, please send it through the chat. Marianne sent a reminder about that. This is your opportunity to speak with family mediators who are your own constituents, and we'll let you know what's going on the ground, what they're seeing, and you can hear a little bit about their experience as family mediators. I'm going to go it now to Kathy. Kathy is the president of the OAFM, to just speak a little bit more about some of the family mediation services that we offer and what she's heard from her own MPP or local MPP. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Nicole. So just very briefly, I had an opportunity to speak with the Peterborough MPP Dave Smith's constituency office a couple of weeks ago. They let me know that they have frequent inquiries from people who are not receiving their court-ordered support payments, and also from people who are in arrears through FRO because their income no longer allows them to meet their court-ordered support obligations. These types of cases are considered non-urgent, and it could be many months yet before these cases are able to be heard by a judge. Mediation can help these families revise their agreements now so that they can be formalized by the courts promptly. I was also told that concerns pertaining to Children's Aid Society matters were often brought to the MPP's office by their constituents, and these types of issues may be addressed through accredited child protection mediators. The families across access this service by requesting it through their CAS workers, who in turn make the referral for child protection mediation. This is a funded service, and there's no cost to the families who choose to access this service. Participation is voluntary, and issues may involve the caseworker or only the family members. Nicole?
Thanks, Kathy. That's great. We do have a question coming in. Someone has asked about actually domestic violence. Domestic violence is on the rise during the COVID lockdown. How does family mediation deal with this type of situation? And Marianne, if you can.
So yeah, so sadly, I think we heard Mitzi earlier say that the Assaulted Women's Helpline calls have gone up 400% and a similar increase for Kids Help Phone. So we know that, sheltering in place is not actually safe or healthy for a lot of individuals in the province of Ontario. It does increase risk. It increases stress on the family. And when you look at trying to resolve a conflict that happens during COVID, we're sort of limited to this online presentation. And so we've really talked to our mediators about how to screen. Screening is a major part. So screening for family violence and process design and adaptation are very, very important to all family mediators who are on this call today and all of our members. Family mediators have ongoing training in domestic violence screening, at least 5 hours a year, and it's always part of our discussions at OAFM. So we really are thinking safety first and to try to adapt online. Last week we did online training. We talked about reading body language online, how it's a little different. Akbar, I'm going to mute you there. The idea is that the process online can be adapted, and only if it can be adapted will we move forward with mediation at this time. And we always look at referral on our website. There's a list of organizations across Ontario. You can find that under latest news. There's a COVID response that we've developed there. You can log on there, send members of the public there to look and find a resource in their area to support the family with what they need immediately, and then we move on. Like the process design could be, we put a safety plan in place first with the help of the Assaulted Women's Helpline. They're incredible at connecting with anyone who needs assistance and making a plan. They're the professionals in the area of safety for people and families in Ontario. They will help and work alongside mediators and you as MPPs to ensure that you've done the best you can. And I think that what you're looking at here is people with incredible hearts, and we really care about people's safety and outcomes, and we aren't thinking about what's just happening right now. We're face to face and we're talking. We really care about what happens when they have to shut the computer down and what's going to happen next. What are the next steps for that family? So, referring to a family mediator, we are working with multiple agencies to help in secure safety and work and think about process design.
Awesome.
Great question. Thank you for that one.
Yeah, that's great. And it really highlights how, as a family mediator, you're not only mediating, but you're also partnering with other organizations potentially, just to assist the family so that it is a safe process and an effective process. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, all mediators are not social workers. They're not all lawyers. They're not all financial professionals. These are some of the backgrounds that our mediators are. But we know one of our standards of practice is to do no harm, to only practice in the area of our expertise. So we meet regularly, at least 4 times a month. Our membership meets in various pockets and areas to discuss these types of things and to connect with each other. Even today, we're connecting with each other and saying, oh, there's Antoinette and there's Grace, and we can know each other and build a smaller community of practice in our own spheres. One thing with COVID is we are expanding our spheres, aren't we? Where we don't have to worry so much. We can connect with Sault Ste. Marie, Gwen, Elizabeth in Ottawa, Jonathan in Peterborough,
Yeah,
everyone.
it's fantastic.
And if I can just add, most family courts who have a family law information center have an information and referral coordinator located there. So if MPP's offices are looking for information on local services for their constituents, that would be a great place for them to access that kind of information. It's sort of a one-stop shop for information services.
Awesome. Great. Okay, so our next question, Marianne, I think you'd mentioned about expanding the role of mediation in the courts. The question is, how does mediation strengthen the community?
So I think that's a nice question, Nicole. Thank you. The idea is that, you know, I'd ask you to think about yourselves. You know, if you've ever had a decision made for you in your family or in your community, you know, what does that feel like, as opposed to being empowered to have self-determination and working with your neighbor or your partner or your child to come up with a plan. And when people have that feeling of self-determination fulfilled, they often feel empowered by that. And then the empowerment translates into community health and strength and commitment to the outcome and fulfilling of the outcome, doing what you said you were going to do because you decided. And in mediation, it's all voluntary. These, you know, all of the people who come are voluntarily there. They're agreeing to a process. They're coming up with an outcome that is a joint combined outcome that meets some of their needs and some of their neighbor's needs or their child's needs or their partner's needs. And so through that building of a strong response, a strong outcome that they can commit to, I think that is really the key to how families are strengthened and communities are strengthened through the use of mediation. It just puts all the control, the power, the self-determination in their hands. It's in the family's house. It's not in someone else's house. It's just going to go home and not think about them, right? It's self-determination is key.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Yeah, we have another question here. We've gone through a lot of information here in this short period of time. So if there's anything that has been said that you didn't quite catch, but you wanted to have repeated, please feel free to use the chat. And here's just one of the questions in terms of, a very fundamental question. What exactly is family mediation?
Well, family mediation is a voluntary process that empowers people to make decisions for themselves. I think I've sort of gone through that in my last, I could get back up on my soapbox and go forth and tell you all about that again. But I think really at the heart of it, you need to know it's a conversation. It's a facilitation of a conversation that meets the needs of the clients, the people who are in front of you, to allow them to come up with a resolution that makes sense with expertise. So the child protection mediators, the family mediators, the elder mediators hold expertise in wonderful ways to assist the parties to hear each other. So that's those sort of the magic part, right, of mediation, is that, you know, we learn models of mediation that really we can use and assist people. And adapt and serve is not only for COVID-19, adapt and serve is what does the family in front of you need in order to move forward. I see a question from MPP Mike, and I have my glasses on, just Mike S, I'll say, curious about how mediation translates into court, and are mediators' decisions upheld in court, or are they a step to hopefully avoid court? And so that's also a nice question that I'd like to answer, that is, the idea is that, you know, a couple, what's the first thing a couple does if you see it on TV or when you think about it, having an argument with your spouse, something happens, you search online for a divorce lawyer. Well, this is an alternative to that. And part of this day, and October 7th will expand on that, is to actually put the idea of mediation in a person's mind first. So to think, you know, there's actually an alternative. You don't have to lawyer up. You can work with a mediator to try to resolve the issues and save that sort of self-determination piece. And mediators work alongside with lawyers. Independent legal advice is always recommended. It's part of our standards of practice for our clients. So we work alongside the legal profession, and a mediation, if someone has a mediated memorandum of understanding, a lawyer drafts it. I think someone mentioned that, drafts it, Mitzi mentioned that, they have a lawyer draft that into a separation agreement. Those agreements, from my understanding, and Kathy may have more information about the court interpretation, but from, you know, I'm a private mediator as well. I get a lot of people coming to say, you know, I've tried to go back to court. In my document, it says in my dispute resolution clause, I will try mediation, and we are back here to try mediation. So I feel as a private mediator, there's a lot of respect given to a mediated separation agreement or mediated memorandum of understanding that's turned into a separation agreement. I want to be clear, mediators do not write separation agreements. Kathy?
Yeah, that's in fact quite correct. And so that parties are able to participate in what goes into those agreements that they're mediating, as opposed to letting others decide for them. And they can take those mediated agreements to their own lawyer for their lawyer to sign off on, or to turn those mediated agreements into legally binding separation agreements.
Okay. And also with respect to the question about the court, if parties have come to an agreement, they can certainly, on consent, have that turned into a court order, and that will become a legally binding court order.
Right.
Marianne, you'd mentioned briefly about October, the event in October the 7th. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Sure. So, I mean, really, right now, we're just dipping our toe in the water. We're trying to give you a rapid response during COVID-19 to the services that are available online. We want you to know right away that, you know, family mediators are here. We've adapted. We're serving. This is something that you can rely on and count on for a high level of professionalism. So we wanted to come on quickly and give you that information. And then in October, that was the original day. We'd had lovely lunch organized, lovely sandwiches and all sorts of, the food sounded amazing, but sadly, you know, COVID stepped in and we're not having the in-person event, but we're going to have a longer, more in-depth day, October 7th, and you're all invited, and we would love input too on what you'd like to see, what you need to see in order to serve your constituents better, and as mediators, what you need to see us sharing as information. And so we'll just really just expand more of a deepening into what the rules are. I went over it very quickly, what mediators do, like how, you know, what is it that we do? And so we'll deepen on that, and so you will know and have an increased knowledge base to share with your constituents going forward.
That's great, thank you. It's 12:55. We might have time for one more question around the cost for family mediation. That's always a key consideration.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Kathy or Marianne wants to go.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Kathy, and then I'll step in and tell you about private services in Ontario, as I don't do any court connected, but Kathy is very familiar with the court connected system.
Sure. So, Jamie Lee did touch on accessing on-site and off-site mediation services. And so for the Court Connected program, you can access mediation at the court if you're already involved in a court process and you have a matter before the courts that day, most of the time you can access mediation at the court, and that is a free service. It's first come, first served in most cases, depending on how busy the court is. And in the on-site services that are free, they're generally looking at helping you resolve some immediate, narrowly focused issues. If you're looking to create a full parenting plan or a co-parenting agreement, or if you're looking to work out your distribution of family properties and assets, those are more lengthy types of mediation requirements. And in those cases, you would be referred to what we call off-site mediation. And those services are provided on a sliding fee scale. And that scale is based on the participants' gross yearly income as well as their number of dependents. The fee scale is set by the Ministry of the Attorney General, and it's in most cases extremely affordable, with fees starting as low as $5 an hour. And so, Marianne, I'll let you speak about private mediation services, which is another option.
Right. So this question, we get a lot of public callers, and that's one of the most common questions people will ask. So what are the various methods of connecting with a family mediator, an elder mediator, a child protection mediator? And so there are the court-connected options, and then there are the private family mediator options where fees really do vary. So in a location such as downtown Toronto on Bay Street or University, where rent is very, very high, the fees are sort of comparably higher to make sure the lights stay on. And in smaller regions where rent may be lower, and maybe because I've started to see rents creep up sort of everywhere from what I'm hearing, the rates might be lower. So I hear of rates, and this is not a science, this is just me hearing of people talking about rates. My mediator charged me $150 an hour, or my mediator is charging $500, $600, $700 an hour. And really that scale is based on the market that mediator is working in. So it really does, I always advise people to look for a few mediators in their area. We have excellent coverage throughout the province of Ontario, so the mediators' private rates will vary, and we do not stipulate what a rate could or should be.
Okay, so it's shop around.
So yeah, shop around and see and also like in an elder mediation, you may have a rate of $250 an hour and 10 participants. And so the rate becomes more affordable because the group is larger, right? And then there's the transfer payment agency ministry funded child protection mediation. And then there's the court connected services. And then, there's all the wonderful hearts of the mediators who are out there. I heard of a story of a mediator the other day resolved an elder issue in half an hour on the phone, didn't bill because it was something she felt great about. And it was just like the people that you call on our website really care about families and will do what they can, obviously very individually, to help families if they can, right? It's a lovely group of people you'll be working with.
Absolutely, no question about that. And there's just a quick comment as well that with court-connected mediation, the fees can be reduced or waived altogether. Inability to pay will not be a barrier. So that's another comment.
Yeah, yeah, excellent.
So we're at 1 p.m. right now.
Okay, well, we better let people off to their other meetings. I see people chatting that they have to go. So thank you so much for coming. We will be in touch with the October 7th event information, and we hope to see you all back and healthy online again. And even more to the future, we will serve you a beautiful meal one day. So that's in the long-term range. So thank you so much. It's been very nice to have you here. I appreciate it.
Thank you to everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.